A sharp decline in oil prices would make matters worse because the pandemic was already having a negative impact on the global economy. Together with the other G20 members, the US, Saudi Arabia, and Russia met to discuss how to resolve the problem. Additionally, the collaboration between OPEC and other oil-producing nations assisted in ending a pricing conflict and restoring order to the market. Cooperation on energy between major world powers seems to be a thing of the past after 3 years into Russia's battle in Ukraine. By turning Ukraine's natural gas shipments to Europe into weapons, Moscow has been working for months to destroy the country's energy infrastructure. Energy-intensive nations are increasingly competing with one another to get enough fuel for their populaces. Additionally, the long-standing Saudi-US oil relationship is starting to feel the strain. Joe Biden and other key figures in the renewable energy sector have also spoken about the possibility of a fresh conflict over control of supply chains. This demonstrates how a power battle amongst the world's largest oil and gas producers is tearing apart long-standing relationships. Within the next 30 days, a watershed event will take place that could signal the start of the end for the current situation on the global oil market. Russia will start to obstruct countries that want to set a cap on the price of Russian oil. Additionally, this comes after the European Union imposed sanctions on the nation on December 5. Ships carrying Russian oil to other nations won't be allowed to be insured by European firms as a result of the sanctions imposed on Russia. But if those nations refuse to pay the oil prices that the West sets, then it won't happen. In other words, the West will attempt to impose a limit on the price that Russia may set for its oil. However, the sanctions imposed on Russia when Putin sent troops across the Ukrainian border barely have any effect on the nation's oil exports or Moscow's oil revenue. It is disrespectful to Moscow for its geopolitical adversaries to set the price for the sale of its petroleum. With over 10% of global oil production, Russia is the largest oil producer and head of the OPEC Plus cartel. This implies that whoever sets pricing ultimately pays the most. Energy industry veterans predict that the coming weeks will be exceedingly risky for the oil market and a global economy that continues to be heavily dependent on the commodity. Long-standing geopolitical norms started to deteriorate last year. Additionally, long-standing supply networks are experiencing disruptions. Examples include Saudi Arabia's decision to cut back on oil deliveries in October of last year and Russia's willingness to burn its European gas customers. However, purchase has also moved forward. Everything from Western attempts to get rid of Russian energy to American desire to use up its emergency oil supply to drive down gas prices. China and Saudi Arabia emphasize the value of the stability of the world oil market and Riyadh's contribution to maintaining it. And while Chinese President Xi Jinping was visiting, they jointly released the statement. China is the world's biggest energy consumer, and Saudi Arabia, an OPEC Plus powerhouse, serves as its main energy supplier. Additionally, as part of attempts to improve relations, the two sides had agreed to enhance trade and economic cooperation during bilateral conversations. At its most recent meeting, the OPEC Plus Oil Producers Alliance resolved to retain its existing output levels. Markets are apprehensive as a result of the G7's cap on the price of Russian oil and the slowing Chinese economy. Additionally, it claimed that the two parties would expand their cooperation in a number of areas and investigate opportunities for joint investments in the petrochemical sector. This includes the development of dependable supply networks for all types of energy as well as energy efficiency and cutting-edge technology. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries now occupies a significant position on the global oil and gas market. Last year, OPEC decreased daily oil production by about 2 million barrels. And it equates to a reduction of about 2% of the global supply. The news was immediately followed by shockwaves that increased the price of both oil and gas. Additionally, the price of a barrel of crude oil increased by about 21%, going from $77 to $93. Additionally, OPEC has a key role in determining the price of oil. OPEC has a direct impact on the value of oil and gas equities since the price of oil directly influences the value of these stocks. Speaking of OPEC, so far in 2023, Iraq has exported 438,000 tons of gas condensate. By the end of the year, they had shipped a total of 48,000 tons around the globe. The nation has never had gas exports that were competitive on a global basis. Instead, to meet the electrical needs of its people, the government has long relied largely on gas imports, particularly from Iran. Contrary to prior assertions that they had declined as a result of Tehran reducing its supplies to Baghdad, Iran reported greater gas deliveries to Iraq in October. Additionally, officials have previously argued for Iraq to diversify its exports in order to reduce its reliance on crude oil. In the meantime, the U.S. has grown to become a significant crude oil exporter in recent years. However, the nation hasn't sold more goods than it took in since World War II. The United States is currently exporting a record 3.4 million BPD of crude oil and about 3 million BPD of refined products like gasoline and diesel fuel. Another area where the United States leads is the expansion of liquefied natural gas exports. At 20 million barrels per day, the US uses the most crude oil of any country. Furthermore, production has never exceeded 13 million barrels per day. Up until recently, it was ludicrous to expect it to be anything other than a significant importer of oil. Official data indicates that throughout the previous month, the United States only imported 1.1 million barrels of crude oil daily. Since records have been recorded since 2001, this is the lowest level. From the 5-year average of nearly 7 million barrels per day in U.S. imports, that is a significant decrease. In order to become a net exporter of oil, the United States must either raise production or decrease consumption. According to projections, U.S. petroleum demand would rise by 0.7% in 2023 to 21 million BPD. This implies that output would have to rise. The United States already produces more oil than Saudi Arabia, Russia, and all other countries put together. The U.S.'s aging shale resources have caused this year's output growth to be modest. However, this year's production is anticipated to reach a new high of 13 million BPD. But this is only possible if oil prices are low enough to draw in and keep other oil drillers. Because Russian oil supplies have been declining, European refineries have begun purchasing U.S. grades. Additionally, Asian refiners have raised imports to 1.75 million barrels per day as a result of U.S. oil prices being lower than international benchmarks. Export terminal operators are rushing to expand their capacity in order to handle the enormous tankers that can carry more than 2 million barrels of oil. According to the head of the biggest U.S. oil export facility, Russia has proven to be an unreliable supplier. He added that the energy sector and U.S. businesses both stand to benefit greatly from this. Exports from this plant reached a record 2.2 million barrels per day in October, and they may reach 2.3 million by the end of the next year. If the world economy experiences a recession, experts anticipate a decline in net exports. In the first half of 2023, the U.S. rose to become the top LNG exporter in the world. And as a result of increased costs brought on by increased demand from Europe, it surpassed Qatar and Australia. As the continent rushes to restock inventories depleted this winter, a OPEC expert forecasts that Europe's LNG exports will rise until 2024. Due to plant closures and declining customer demand, exports of refining items have decreased. Additionally, according to data from the EIA, the U.S. exported petroleum on average at 3.1 million BPD through September of this year. And that's less than the first 3 months of 2019, when output amounted to an average of 3.2 million BPD. According to OPEC data, diesel exports increased to 1.3 million BPD in July, the highest level in the previous 3 years. Due to the upcoming embargo on Russian fuel, diesel shipments to Europe have been averaging 330,000 BPD in September. Additionally, this represents a rise of more than 5 times the monthly normal. All these figures now indicate that the major oil and gas exporting nations have changed their methods to counteract rising oil prices. And according to experts, this is just the beginning. What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia, and do you think they can overthrow the US economy? Let me know down below. If you want to continue to learn about business investing and financial education, we have got this video waiting on the screen for you to check out. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.